We never told a lie on this show. Ohio State back to practice on Wednesday night. We are back in here just like we said we would be. Tim May, the 40-year vet, Andy Backstrom, I'm Spencer Holbrook. We're going to get right into it, fellas. No time to waste here on a Wednesday night. A Woody Wednesday, as the kids call it. Nice batch of Buckeyes give us the scoop on what's going on with this program in the lead up to Ohio State versus Youngstown State. Tim, big takeaway from Ohio State and its players who spoke to us on Wednesday night.
You know, my favorite line was when I kind of fed Josh Fryer and then it came back out better baked. I don't know if you've ever done that.
They call it regurgitation, Tim.
But when he was talking about being on the same page, and he was talking about they were pretty much on the same page most of the day on Saturday at Indiana, the offensive line was. And I followed up with, well, same page, but sometimes different paragraphs, right? And basically he said, yeah, because they weren't that far off from having a hell of a day. But when you're just a little bit off from having a hell of a day on the offensive line, it creates havoc. You know, plays get blown up, drives get ruined and stuff. And they feel like especially the last part of that game, they did get a feel for things. They did get a feel for each other from the standpoint of knowing who's got whom, where, who's picking up this twist. You know, I've got this guy kind of things. And it's so important to get that first game under your belt with 3 new starters on an offensive line.
This might be Josh Fryer's first year as a starter on that offensive line, but he certainly has been around for a while, and he's seen offensive lines take a little bit of time to gel together, and that's something what he talked about, that this is, hey, look, he wasn't making excuses. He was giving perspective and saying that offensive line play week 1 around the country isn't great overall. So there's certainly optimism on his part of looking forward to what this group can be. And it was a lot of saying, hey, this is a collective thing. Don't point fingers at Josh Simmons or Carson Hinsman. Collectively, we need to be better. I guess my takeaway from today is talking to the cornerbacks. They want the ball thrown their way. It was a little bit of a boredom, a little bit anxiousness. They want to get started in terms of actually playing pass defense. Now, they did play well when they were throwing the ball. In terms of Denzel Burke having 2 pass breakups, Jordan Hancock had another. Davis Nigbinosin was around the ball a lot, but they want the ball thrown their way, and it feels like week 1 or week 2 really against Youngstown State, even though it is Youngstown State, it's going to be the first time that they're at least seeing a conventional offense.
By the way, something's going on outside. We've heard tires squealing forever.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on out there.
There's something going on.
There's an anxiousness in the build-up to Ohio.
What you gonna do when they come for you?
There's an anxiousness in the build-up for Ohio State, Youngstown State. I feel it too, guys. Trust me, I feel it. It's going to be a banger on Saturday at noon. My 2 takeaways from tonight. I got 2 takeaways from tonight. 1, Josh Fryer thinks Indiana's going to be a bowl team. I think there's a little bias there as an Indiana native. But also, he played against that defense. He says that defense is good enough to get them to a bowl. I don't know. Good luck, Hoosiers. You got expectations to live up to now. You got to get the drive to 6-6 starts this week for Indiana against Indiana State on Friday night. As for those Buckeyes, I asked Davis Nigbinosin. I kind of feel bad about it. I asked him about his penalty. I asked him about the targeting call. But all of that was me just trying to, talk to him a little bit about his first start, how he thought he played. He said he wasn't surprised that there was a penalty thrown on that pass interference. They're always going to call bad calls, but he guesses he has to be a little better. He said he gave up a couple passes, and he wants to be better. The interesting thing that I take away from all of that to say, is that this is a guy who gave up, I think, 2 catches, who, played really well, was in on a lot of tackles, on a defense that gave up just 3 points. And this man is still talking about, we have to get better. This defense is on an absolute mission, fellas. Like, they are not satisfied at all. They don't think they've done anything. And I think that's bad news for the Gwins on Saturday, Tim.
Yeah. But I hasten to remind people, they were coming off, Ohio State was coming off a 21-10 win over Notre Dame last year at this time. And a lot of us thought, hey, that defense played pretty damn well. The first outing under Jim Knowles. Actually, I thought the defense played pretty well most of the year until you get to those last 3 games where big plays especially, ate them up. And whether they fixed that or not, as we talked about the other day, Indiana didn't really try to press that button, the big play button, unless they were trying to get it on a deft option pitch to the edge. But there were just things about this defense that looked different on Saturday, and one of which is just the confidence that these guys carried. You could see it. You could see the way they were attacking. You could see the way they were getting off the ball, especially the back 7. there is something different about this. This will be a new test this week against a team that scored 52 points last week, granted, against Valparaiso. But we'll see if they can get them in that stranglehold that Denzel Burke wants. He wants a 0. He wants a 0 on the scoreboard. That's the way he's measuring this defense this year. So we'll see if they can deliver that.
I think we should change it from BIA to BOA because they want to strangle people. So
you don't know what I'm talking
boa
about.
constrictor.
If you're gonna get literal here.
I'm sorry. That was a bad joke. I'll be here all night, folks.
I'm with the boa constrictor thing, though, and Florida needs your help.
Tim, or Andy, it's interesting as the defense continues to talk about we need to get better, the offense keeps talking about we need to get better, but the offense also has the perspective of there are a lot of people or egg profile pictures or just anybody talking a lot about this Ohio State offense and what it wasn't on Saturday, and what it was a team that won by 20, but what it wasn't was as explosive, as maybe creative in getting Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka the ball. Cade Stover said he's not paying attention to Johnny in his basement. Josh Fryer said that he is, blocking out the outside noise. This team, I think, is doing a pretty good job of learning from a couple years ago when C.J. Stroud went through this and what was said about him, and kind of rallying around their quarterbacks, plural, both Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, and saying, like, hey, we got you guys. We're going to get better. This offense is going to be just fine. They are absolutely not hitting the panic button on this offense right now.
Yeah, and we talked to Julian Fleming, too, who was here with C.J. Stroud when they had that 2021 debut, and some kinks they had to work out with that offense. So he knows what this can look like pretty quickly, even. And he's confident in Kyle McCord and what he's done so far as a starter, the composure he has in that huddle. And it seems like that's the consensus among these guys, that they're confident with that quarterback back there. Whoever is playing, they're good with. But when Kyle's been brought up, it's been the composure, being relaxed, not panicking. And I think with that comes this confidence in this offense that things are going to click. And that was really the message from Ryan Day on Tuesday, that, hey, week 2 is an opportunity to make a big jump from week 1. And we kind of heard that all week, and we heard that today again.
Yeah, it's interesting, Tim. I asked Cade Stover if he felt that Kyle McCord settled down a little bit. And Julian Fleming, I think, asked him the same thing. Did you feel like, in the second half, Kyle settled down a little bit? He said, no, I felt like Kyle was calm the entire time. That's an interesting thing to say about a first-time starting quarterback. I saw a quarterback progress throughout the day. I think they all did, but they do say, he's a cool, calm, collected presence in there, at all times, and it showed up for them on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see him being jittery or nothing. I mean, he missed a few passes, and then of course we know the big pass he threw to Marvin Harrison Jr. got called back because Marvin Harrison Jr. stepped out of bounds or was tapped out of bounds. Who knows? Bottom line is
he was out of bounds.
There were about 3 or 4 plays there that if they'd gone the other way, we'd be talking differently about Kyle McCord. But that is what it is. I just, the main thing that I've been, like you said, I've been doing this for 40 years, Ohio State in particular. People always overreact. That's key. Just like Saturday, if they win convincingly, what's convincingly against Youngstown State? If they win big against Youngstown State, you shouldn't overreact either. They should win big against Youngstown State. That was an opener on the road against a team that had revamped its defense from a personnel standpoint, much less a coordinator. And there were some things that whenever your offensive line is having an inconsistent day, believe me, there are very few quarterbacks in the country that can fix that and make everything go swimmingly. So there was a lot going on there, not just with Kyle McCord. And I thought he kept his cool, like you said. That's why Ryan Day kept him in the game, was because there were some things there that needed to get ironed out, not just for him, but for that offensive line. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. But the key on Saturday is not to overreact again if, in fact, he has a huge day. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has buku touchdowns and right on down the list.
Tim, I'm not going to ask for a bold prediction. We're going to save that for Friday. But on the Wednesday show, I think we should start doing something. So it's the first edition of this. Right now, Youngstown State, heavily outgunned, outmanned by Ohio State. I have set the personal spread at 54.5. There are others who I've heard who have set it at 52.5. The books do not have a line. They will at some point later in the week for an FBS, FCS game. You can still get a line on it. So, it's not going to be, I think we can all safely say it's probably not going to be competitive. It will be stunning if it's competitive. But what's one thing, Tim, that you're looking forward to seeing quickly?
Well, number one, history shows you that when Youngstown State has come in here the previous 2 times, it was not that huge blowout.
Yeah.
It was a blowout, but it wasn't a huge blowout. Now, What's the question now?
Just one thing that you're looking forward to seeing on Saturday, even though it is Youngstown State.
I'm looking forward to seeing Kyle McCord to Marvin Harrison Jr. much the same way they played at St. Joe's Prep way back when they were going for state titles and such. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing on Saturday.
I want to see the run blocking. I want to see an improvement in the run game if there is one. I want to see the offensive line take a step forward, even if it's against lesser competition in Youngstown State. Look, Youngstown State plays FBS competition every year now. They're not winning those games, but they're seeing that competition. A game is a game. I do want to see this offensive line take a step forward, or if they stay, if they stay the same, keep having trouble, that's something more for us to talk about, and I think that's a legitimate concern at that point.
And I've had Jim Trussell on the Tim May show this week, and we talked, former head coach at Youngstown State before he came here, former president of Youngstown State, and they're not going to be that in awe when they walk in here, because they do play an FBS school basically every year and stuff, and they've played. These guys haven't, but they've been to Ohio Stadium before. It's and they want to. They're mainly from Ohio. They want to show their wares, as Ryan Day said the other day. So that's the kind of game I expect. I expect both teams to get after it. I expect Youngstown State to throw its best volley at Ohio State.
I want to see a half of football that is absolutely just shutout, dominant. Like, you're Ohio State, act like it. And I want to see this team act like it. Last year, Notre Dame, they come in here and it's 21-10, and they kind of act like it. Assert their dominance against Notre Dame in the second half, and then it's 45 points against Arkansas State, and then 77 against Toledo. It seemed like after that Notre Dame game, they put their foot on the gas. You need to do that against Youngstown State, and I want to see this team have that killer instinct from the jump, even against an FCS opponent. You want to be taken as a national title contender. You go out there and you absolutely shred an FCS opponent in the first 25 minutes of the game. That way you can drink Gatorade while the freshmen play in the second half. And that's what I want to see from this team. And I'm not going to hold back from that, because that's what this should be. If you're a national championship contender, act like it. Alabama beat Middle Tennessee like a freaking drum. Georgia played with this food the first 15 minutes against whoever they played on Saturday, and people were angry about it because their running game couldn't get going. People were angry at Ohio State because they couldn't do it against a Big Ten opponent. Well, you still need to be able to do it against the FCS opponent. So that's what I'm watching for.
There's Coach Prime pep talks, and then there's Coach Choice pep talks. That was a good pep talk.
Yeah, take care of business. Be a championship contender. That's what you are. Act like it.
That Coach Choice, that little
exactly. Yeah.
thing I did there.
Hey, whatever you want to call me, Tim, just don't call me late to the Woody for Ohio State interviews on Wednesday night. Lettermen Row will be in the Horseshoe on Saturday for Ohio State, Youngstown State, noon on BTN if you can't get here. If you can, though, we'd love to chat with you. Stop us in the parking lot in the tailgate. Say, hey, we watched Lettermen Row.
I had people doing that on Saturday.
Yeah, we would love that.
There are people all over the country. I got from South Carolina, a guy from North Carolina, this group from Chattanooga came up for the game. They're talking about all the videos they watch of us, and I thought it was pretty interesting.
So if you see us walking into the Woody at 8:30, I'll have a big cup of coffee in my hand. I don't know what Andy be drinking. Tim might be already tailgating with the fellas by that point.
Don't do that.
However you see us, come say hi. We'll be there hanging out, covering the Buckeyes for LettermenRow.com, the 40-year vet Tim May, Andy Backstrom. I am Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you Saturday in the Woody for Ohio State. Saturday in the Horseshoe for Ohio State and Youngstown State.